Okay, so good morning and welcome to ICT Configuration Administration. My name is Vasilios Adamos. Most of you, I think, have been here last semester as well. So you just call me Vas. So if you don't know me, just call me Vas. My office is in A202B, which is in Anglesey building, second floor, somewhere on the right. But I live in the lab A2.net. So you'll most likely never find me in that office. All right. If you do need to contact me, your best bet is an email. If it's a stupendously busy period of the year, for example, towards the end of the semester, don't expect a reply within maybe, let's say, 3 days. But under normal conditions, I should reply within the same day or within 24 hours. Also in the summer, if you're asking to move a lab session and I'm at the beach drinking my mojito, don't expect a reply. So, this module, what do we have? So, we will have 1 hour of lecture, which will be on Wednesday mornings like today, and I will use this time to explain the theory behind everything that we need to do in the lab, behind what's happening in the lab sheets basically, and then we will get 3 hours of lab time in A2.net. We can only do this module in A2.net because it's very specific in what we need to do, and because A2.net is the only one that supports what we'll be doing here. We have stronger computers than the rest of the university, I would say, in there that are built specifically for this type of module. Now, the module is assessed by artifacts. The artifacts that we have are 2. The first one is the logbook, and the second one will be the exam. The exam will take place in January, so the semester or the teaching block runs from today until the 15th of December. We then have 3 weeks of break for Christmas, and then we have 2 weeks of exams after that. Within those 2 weeks, once the exam timetable is out, you will know exactly when and where your exam will take place. The exam will take place in one of the university's computer labs, most likely Liongate 014, because it's a big lab with lots of computers and there are a lot of you. And you definitely need to be here to do the exam. All right, so before anybody asks, no, you cannot do the exam from home, even though it's a computer-based test. All right. The logbook itself is something that you'll need to be working on for the entirety of your teaching block here. So every week when you come into the lab, you'll need to perform some tasks according to the lab sheets, and you'll need to document your work and progress and justify your work in a logbook. I will explain later in much more detail how this actually works. Everything about this module is located on Moodle. When you go into your Moodle, on Moodle Port AC UK, you should be able to see this unit, this module, as of yesterday night. Okay, so check today and make sure that you can see ICT Configuration Administration. If you cannot, you need to send an email to techocd@portac.uk and tell them, hi, I'm doing this course and I'm supposed to have this module and they cannot see it on Moodle, please enable it for me. Okay, it's happened already with a couple of my students for the undergraduate degrees, so it might happen to one of you. Don't stress, just send an email to techocd@portac.uk. So the lab itself, as I said, will always be working in A2.net. You will have your lab sessions, so you will need to be coming to the same lab session every week, and you can also use open access. So generally the lab is used on an open access basis, which means that if nobody is sitting on your allocated computer and you go into the lab, you can sit on that computer and work. This is valid not only when there are no classes running in there. You can also go to your computer if there is a class running in there, but your computer is free. You can ask whoever is running that class, whoever the lecturer of that module, and say, hello, my computer is empty, can I work on it? And they'll most likely say yes. All right, unless there is in fact somebody working on that computer, they've gone out for a break or something like that. All right, just sit on your computer, work, set your phone to silent please, so that you don't bother the rest of the class, and work all you like. The previous years, starting with COVID, the upsetting news, yes. So starting with COVID, we started offering remote access to the lab computers. We are stopping this year. All right, okay. There are multiple reasons for this. The first and most important reason was that there are too many of you. In total, for the first teaching block, I have 360 students. People used to connect even before 6 o'clock when I asked people not to connect. And if somebody connects and starts their virtual machine, they will take the IP address of that virtual machine. So whoever is trying to work locally on that computer will not get an IP address, their networking won't run, so basically nothing will run. The other issue, other than overcrowding the computer, was lots and lots and lots of plagiarism. At the end of the teaching block, I check your logbooks. I check your logbooks by sitting with you on your computer in the last lab session and reading your logbook and checking the work done on your computer. And I ask questions. I had quite a few students that they asked lots of questions, and even though they have a perfect logbook and all the work done on their computers, they knew nothing about it. So obviously somebody else did it for them remotely. Some of the screenshots were there remotely, so it's very easy to put together what happened. Okay, so those few people ruined it for everybody. Anyway, it's mostly because of the overcrowding and the IP addresses. Okay, we're all back here. You should all theoretically live in Portsmouth or the surrounding area. I also had an email from somebody that says that they live in Manchester, and they asked if they can do it remotely. I also did not reply to that email. But yes. So yes, if you don't live in Portsmouth, make sure you can travel and come and work. The lab is open until 9 o'clock in the evening. So if you do need to put in some extra time, you can come in after 5 or 6 o'clock when the labs are finished, and you can work on the computer for a good 3 hours until the caretakers eventually kick you out. Okay. The computers will be allocated to you during the first practical on week 2, so that's next week, and from then on you will always work on that computer. This also means that lab session changes will not be possible after week 2. So what I want you to do, first of all, Thursday's lab session has 44 students at the moment. The lab has a capacity of 48. I don't want to move any students from Friday on to Thursday. Okay? If you find someone that is on a Thursday session and they want to move on to a Friday session, you can swap places with them. And in fact, we can sort of do this now. Hands up if you're on a Thursday and you want to move to a Friday. I thought so. Hands up if you're on a Friday and you want to move to a Thursday. Okay. Hands up if you're on a Friday morning and want to move to a Friday afternoon session. Okay. And then hands up if you're on a Friday afternoon and want to move to a Friday morning. Okay, so these are possible because the Friday sessions have about 36 and 37 students in them. So I do have 11 spaces free. Okay, so what I want you to do, as soon as we're finished with this lecture, I want you to send me an email, and the title of that email must be ICT class move. All right, make sure you include your student ID in there and tell me, hi Vas, I'm currently on the Friday morning session and I need to move to the Friday afternoon session. All right. I will accept and accommodate emails like this until next Wednesday. All right. Emails received after next Wednesday will be ignored. All right. So next Wednesday at this lab lecture that we'll have next Wednesday will be your last chance to move lab sessions and send that request to me. Okay. After that, on Thursdays and Fridays, you will come to the lab. I will sit you wherever you know I'm supposed to sit you, and then you're not allowed to move ever after that. Okay? So you will have your own computer. You will have your own username that you will log into that computer. So essentially, that computer in the lab becomes your computer, and that username, rather, user account, becomes your computer for the rest of the teaching block. The usernames on the computers in the lab are not UP and your student number. They are VM1, VM2, VM3, and so on. Okay, they're specific and local to the computers in the lab. So once you allocated one, you change the password onto it so that nobody else can log in and work on your computer by mistake. And then it's yours for the rest of the teaching block. Okay, we're all happy with this? Good. So, the exam for this module is going to be a computer-based test. It's going to last 60 minutes and it will consist of 50 questions. lots of questions, but they are also very quick questions as well. Okay, there are multiple choice, multiple response. The most difficult type of questions that you might have will be the fill in the blanks sort of question, and that too will be something usually like a command. So type the command that is needed to install whatever. All right. The wonderful twist to this is that the exam is actually going to be an open book exam. All right. So you don't need to remember the commands. This means that they will allow you to bring a double-sided A4 piece of paper into the exam that you can either write or type anything you want on it. Okay, if you can bring a magnifying glass and make the world's smallest font, you can include your entire logbook into it. It's fine. I'm happy with it. Okay. Yes, also, everything on the exam will be based on what we did in the lab. So essentially, the best source for you to revise for the exam will essentially be your logbook. All right, so the logbook itself is worth another 50% of the module. It needs to be an e-logbook, so it needs to be a Google Doc. There's a very good reason why we suggest that you use your Google Drive and create Google Docs for everything. And the reason is that if any of your work gets lost, it's not your fault. It's the university's responsibility to make sure that your home directory is in fact intact and everything is there and nothing is lost. We do have a process that's called ECF, Extenuating Circumstances Form. So if something happens when you have a coursework or you miss an exam, you're sick or whatever, family member dies, happens more often than you would think, you can fill in an ECF form and we'll say, yes, that's fine. You can have 10 more working days to submit your coursework, or you can come back in July in the second attempt and still get full marks in that assessment. All right. What the ECF form doesn't accept as a valid excuse is my computer crashed. My hard drive died. Okay, so this reason alone is reason enough for you to be using the Google Drive that we offer you. So the university's email addresses are Google Apps email addresses. Okay, so you can use your local Google Drive and store everything there. This is even more convenient for my module because you will be working inside a Linux box. It will be a Red Hat based operating system. It's called CentOS. And you will be working inside multiple virtual machines. At some point, you'll be working in nested virtual machines, so VMs inside VMs. The easiest way for you to access a unified, available directory anywhere is to log into your Google Drive and get it from there. Also, because you will need to get screenshots of your work, the easiest way to have those screenshots transferred onto your logbook is for your logbook to actually be a Google Doc. So you can take your screenshot and then you don't even need to save it locally on the computer, and you shouldn't save it locally on the computer. You can just copy and paste it onto the Google Doc and it's done. Okay, so the logbook itself is kept during the practicals. You can, if you were in a hurry to work and you have lots of work and you can't catch up, at the very least you should be copy and pasting screenshots into your logbook. And then outside the lab or when you go home, I need you to have some explanation under the screenshots telling me what I'm seeing in that screenshot and why it's there. Okay, I changed this setting, I changed it to that because it needs to be this specific thing. All right, so I need the what and the why after each of the screenshots in your logbook. If you do have lots and lots of screenshots explaining everything, but they have no text under them, you will get a wonderful 0. And it's happened in the past and I've done it. Okay, so very important, screenshots and explanations to the screenshots as well. All right, Google Doc, and the submission for this will be Friday, the 15th of December. So that last week, we will not have a normal lab in IT.NET. We will have an assessment session. So this means that you need to come into the lab, have your logbooks ready and completed, open on the computer screen, have all of your virtual machines and all of your work running on your computer, and I check your work. I will spend about 5 minutes with each of you, go through your logbook, have a look at your work on the computer, and if they're the same, we're good. I might not even ask you any questions even, but if I see something that I don't like, for example, you have something that seems to be working in the logbook, but it doesn't work in reality on the computer, I will ask you about it. Okay, this happens for me to check that the work in your logbook is actually your work and you understand what's happening. Okay, so it's what we call a mini viva. All right, so that will happen at the end, and that's the first component of you submitting your logbook. The second part of what you need to do for that logbook to be submitted is to actually physically submit your logbook into a submission inbox electronically on Moodle that I will have created for this. The deadline for that will be Friday, 11 o'clock at night. All right, so even if you are on a Thursday session, you will have until Friday, 11 o'clock to forget about it and then get 0 in the assessment. Yes? So if you don't come to the lab but submit your logbook, it's a non-submission, so you get 0. If you do come to the lab but don't submit your logbook, it's a 0 for non-submission. If you come into the lab and submit your logbook late, it's a late submission, you get 40% on the logbook. Okay, I send lots and lots of emails reminding everybody about this before every time this happens, and an increasing number of students submit late or forget to submit at all. So let's beat that statistic this year, shall we? So yes. So we're going to start with installing the operating system. The way that we work is you log into your computers, you have your normal user accounts and everything, but you don't actually do any work on the computer itself. The work that you do needs to happen inside the main virtual machine that you will build, and that's what you will do in the first week that you're there. Because other than yourself, there will also be 5 more students using your computer, so they will have 5 more user accounts, so we cannot do everything locally on that computer at the same time. All right, so because you don't have, and the other reason is that you need root access for everything that we need to configure. So we cannot give you root access to the physical machine itself because other students will need to use it as well. Okay, so you will build a virtual machine that will install with CentOS, and then in that you will install a VMware and build a virtual network in there of about 5 virtual machines. So the first lab sheet is the installation of the operating system. The second lab sheet, which usually I prefer that it happens in the first lab session, is operating system familiarization, so commands, file system and everything else. Show me a hands up if you have never used the Linux before in your life. Okay, that's promising. Good. All right. Don't worry. We are starting from scratch. Okay. The only thing that you'll notice is that other people are moving much faster than you, especially the students that were here in the previous semester that started in January. They should whiz through these 2 lab sheets in the first session straight away. I'm hoping. Yeah. So first 2 lab sheets are all about setting up the host, setting up the operating system that will host all of the VMs that you will build. The third lab sheet is VMware and the virtual network. So you will install VMware as a software, and then you will build 4 or 5 virtual machines inside it, I don't remember. All right. You will network them all together, configure them in a specific way, and then do the next lab sheet, which is routing. So you need to get some routing going on 2 of those hosts. Well, basically on your main virtualization host and on one of the virtual machines that you built, and give internet access to everybody there. Talking about routing and IP addresses, if you were here in the previous semester, you will notice a difference this year. We have changed the IP addresses in the lab. So the IP addresses that were starting on 65 last year, and semi-randomly, well, there was a networking reason behind it, but it doesn't exist anymore, went all the way up to 200 and 196, I think. So this year we're starting at 1, finishing at 48. So if you need to bridge that, you can do plus 50, and then plus 100, and then plus 150 very easily. All right. So we have an entire class C subnet, which is all neat and tidy, and you can use it. Okay, so our job should be a little bit more easy this year with regards to IP addresses. Once we get routing out of the way, we'll do a little bit of DNS. So you'll set up your host as a DNS server for your little network, and then we'll play around a little bit with Kickstart. So that's where the other virtual machine will get created. This should see you through to December. However, if you are moving fast enough and you find yourself that it's middle of November and you're finished with everything, ask me and I will give you more work to do. Okay, the important thing is that you go through all of the work, all of the lab sheets here. All of the material in the exams will be from those lab sheets here, up and to and including Kickstart. And then if you do have some spare time and you want to play around and experiment, I can give you some more ideas about what other technologies you can try on your little network since you have it built. Okay. Recommended reading. I'm not one for books very much. There is a book. You can read about Linux if you've never used it before, and specifically Red Hat version Linux, because the CentOS that we're using is essentially Red Hat Enterprise Linux. We do use Red Hat because it's the best. My undergraduate students usually shake their head, so that's fine. It's not the best. It's the best one to use for what we want to use it for. Right. It's one of the most widely used flavors of Linux in the industry. It's very good for big data centers and so on and so forth, and that's why we use it. And it is one of the oldest distributions available, and we like it. Yes, Ubuntu exists. It's very nice. It's very good for a normal user desktop. And yes, Debian exists, and you know it's brilliant if you're the world's best hacker, and so on. So it's just what we need to use to prepare you to go out in the industry and know everything, for a lot at least. Yeah. So if you want to learn more about it, there is a book. You can find the PDF version of it online as well. Don't ask me, I won't give it to you. But I think by now you can find it for free very easily as well. But generally, anything you need to know about the operating system itself, if you go to centos.org or if you go to redhat.com, then you can find all the information that you need there. They actually have manuals that explain every single aspect of the operating system, especially the Red Hat site is very, very good in that information. Okay. So I don't have much more to say today. It's only an introduction to what we'll be doing. The most important thing to take away is that you need to come to the lab sessions. If you don't come to the lab sessions, we cannot help you. You will not progress. Unfortunately, this is not the type of module that you can forget about and deal with the coursework in the last 2 or 3 or 4 weeks even. All right. It's something that you need to get into from very early on and make sure you come into the lab. So in the lab, I will have a total of 4 lab assistants with me. So even if it is a full lab session with 44 people or however, there will be people helping you as well. And some of them are here as well. Anyway, so yes, so you will be able to get lots of help. It's not a bad thing to ask for help in the lab. We're not keeping a score and saying, oh, we have to help this person 150 times during the teaching block. I'm going to give him a bad mark. Yes? It doesn't work like that. The more help you get, the more likely it is that you will actually learn and something will actually stick and you will be able to progress through everything in the module. On the flip side of that, don't try and get the teaching assistants or myself to do all the work for you. All right, it has happened in the past, but I provide special training to my assistants now so that they don't do it. Okay, so try something. If it doesn't work and you're stuck, you can ask the people that are working next to you. And if they don't know the answer, then you can ask myself or the teaching assistants as well. Okay, it's not bad to get help from anybody. It's bad if you get help and you don't understand what happened. All right, so if somebody does help you out with some of the work, make sure that you understand what they did and why they did it, so that you actually learn what's happening about the task at hand. Okay. And finally, yes, if you do want to swap sessions, just send me an email and make sure you do that before next Wednesday. Any questions about all this?
What are the days we are having lab on, like apart from Friday?
So the sessions are Thursday morning, Friday afternoon. And the Thursday morning already has 44 students in it with a capacity of 48. So I would really not want to move people from Friday to Thursday unless there's like a very important reason for it. Okay. Anything else?
Professor, could you list the time of all lab?
Yes, good question. Sorry, I forgot to mention this. So all the lab sheets are generally ready already. I just need to verify them once again with the new IP addresses that we have in the lab. That's why I haven't released everything. So the way that you work on the logbook is you can get started on the lab sheets, you can just get started on the material, and if you think that you know it and you understand it, you can move faster than the general progress of the class, okay? I will be explaining a lab sheet per week, pretty much in the lectures, all right? So this means that we'll only have lectures for the first 6 or 7 weeks or whatever it is. Okay, if you think that you can progress faster than that, you can move on to the next lab sheets. Generally, the entire module, you can run it at your own pace. If you're struggling in a specific task, if you're struggling in a lab sheet, it's okay for you to spend 2 or 3 weeks on it. It's not a problem. Okay. And on the flip side, if you are happy with the material and you know what's happening and you can move faster and it's fine. The lab sheets should all be released sometime next week before we come into the lab. Okay, so before next Wednesday, all of the lab sheets will become available and then you can start working on them at your own pace. Okay? Anything else? All right, thank you very much.